What conspiracy theories do you think are too logical to ignore? 1. Kennedy gets elected. 2. Kennedy is critical of the CIA, his own VP and military, for wanting to turn the Cold War into a hot one, and the willingness to perform false flag operations, Project Northwoods, to do it. 3. Kennedy is shot. 4. His VP takes power. 5. Classified. Pretty sure I saw it here on Reddit at one point, but someone brought up the art trade. That these $1 million art shows individual pieces that go for insanely high prices are just a way for money laundering. David Miscavige, the chairman of the Church of Scientology, definitely murdered his wife and is getting off scot-free for it. Him and his wife got into a pretty heated argument in 2007, and she hasn't been seen since. Lawyers hired by David claim she is still alive and devotes 100% of her time to work at the Church of Scientology, which is why she hasn't been seen since August 2007. In 2013, a former member of the church had filed a missing person report that was closed after a few officers had spoken and seen Mrs. Miscavige, even though there's no evidence whatsoever of this meeting. All missing persons reports now are turned down since this investigation is forever closed. The Denver Airport theory. I mean, the capstone of the building literally has the Freemason logo on it. There's some weird ass apocalypse murals on the walls. The runways look like a swastika. And there's a 50-foot tall horse statue with red glowing eyes. I mean, seriously, who the frick designed that place? US intelligence conducting organized blackmail operations out of Epstein's Island. The prosecutor handling Epstein's old case was told to back off and go easy because Epstein was intelligence. Acosta's departure from the administration confirmed that this was not just a rumor. So as an American, I would really like to know exactly who was blackmailing who, how far it extended, and what political decisions were affected. Some torture devices such as the Iron Maiden were made up hundreds of years later so people would think, well, a regular hanging ain't too bad then. With all the scientists in the world, there has to be at least one secret lab on this planet where they have cloned a human. Nutley, NJ, where Martha Stewart was born, has a butcher shop every other corner. How much meat does one small blue-collar town need? Suspicious. Let me introduce you to Wonka Pisser, the theory that Oscar-winning director Bong Joon-ho made a sequel to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with his 2012 film Snowpiercer. My dog did not go to Doggy Disneyland because he won a lifetime ticket for being a good boy. I think that he in fact died. Our phones and all the apps on them are listening to conversation. I'm super anti-conspiracy theory, but this has happened to me way too many times in the last 2 years. I impulse shop really badly. I carry cash for the explicit purpose of I can use this guilt-free for an impulse purchase. 2 years ago I bought high-end lipstick with cash in a store after doing zero research on the brand. Next day I had ads for it despite never even previously hearing of that company before. I had only talked with a sales associate about the brand for a while. 6 months later a very similar thing happened when I switched hair care products to very specific brand. Later that night I had ads for their company which I had never heard of or looked up pre or post purchase. 8 months ago I ordered a cider I had never heard of at a bar in NYC. Didn't research the company or anything about it. Not even 2 hours after I left the restaurant I had ads for that brand of cider on my Facebook. There's easily 5-7 more times I could think of, but these are the ones that bother me the most, because I am positive the transactions were all in cash. I had never looked up the product before, and I had very targeted specific ads from those exact companies less than a day later on most of my social media. I like that people always are worried that Epstein was murdered instead of suicide. What if this was a ploy to cover up that he just escaped or paid his way out of prison? Some people had to talk about Fight Club, otherwise it wouldn't exist. The FBI keeps posting questions like this to see what the public knows. McDonald's shake machines are never actually down. The night crew people are just too lazy to clean it. Google Maps only asks you for feedback on its navigation when it knows it did a good job. I use navigation all the time, and I find that when it gets me to the destination on time or earlier than predicted, I get a notification asking to rate the trip. But if it gets me there after it originally estimated, I never get that notification. That this question is reposted every couple of weeks by them to see just how close the public is to figuring out their schemes. And that this response is reposted every time to throw you off our trail. Jamie Lynn Spears was raped by Dan Schneider. He is the father of her first child. The fashion industry makes too much money from purses to care about making pockets for women easily available. Jamie Lynn Spears, Miranda Cosgrove, Victoria Justice, etc. were raped by Dan Schneider. Nickelodeon let him get away with a lot. There's so many feed jokes in all those shows. A lot of the interviews with those cast members get really awkward when they're around Dan. If you got to pursue your dream career when you really wanted it, wouldn't you do just about anything? If you made Dan Schneider mad, your career would be ruined and your dreams would be over. Pro tip: read the comments in Alex Jones's voice before deciding whether to believe them. Probably too late to this thread, but the idea that there are too many chicken wings for the amount of chicken sold. There is something like 1 billion chicken wings sold every Super Bowl. Where are they coming from? The US government's involvement in the crack cocaine epidemic. For your information, the moon landings were real. In fact, there were 6 in total, and it's not hard to achieve. NASCAR is fake. It's just Hot Wheels going around a track and all the sounds are made by one guy in a sound booth imitating what he thinks a race car would sound like. Amazon Go isn't about replacing cashiers, but about selling stock, receiving tax breaks for R&D and selling marketing analytics on the shoppers. This is why the stores are placed in financial districts and aren't open 24 hours or the weekend. Their camera system is backed up by employees watching you. Google Amazon Go Chicago. They're closed right now. I believe that the US government has men in black that make people disappear if they know more than what's good for them. New Coke was a way for Coca-Cola to switch from real sugar to corn syrup without people noticing. Switch to the new formula that everyone hates. Keep it for a while so that people demand the old one back. Then switch it back after enough time has passed that people wouldn't notice the relatively subtle change. This isn't a conspiracy theory, but I find any chance I can to say that dinosaurs definitely had feathers and deniers are just clinging to Spielberg's image of them. The NFL manipulates its games just enough in order to get the best product out of their season, because they are a business with billions of dollars on the line. With a number of billionaires that are psychopaths or similar, there must be a few super rich serial killers out there. By extension, there must be people making money supplying victims in the same way Epstein was supplying girls to the wealthy who wanted to scratch an itch. With the money, power and influence would come governments and intelligence agencies willing to overlook or cover up terrible actions for leverage. Nothing's actually happening in Area 51. The government just keep it so people will focus on it and ignore the shady stuff happening somewhere else. I quite like the missing cosmonauts theory. It's unlikely, but seems like it could have been possible. It boils down to the idea that Yuri Gagarin wasn't the first man in space. He was just the first man in space to survive the entire process. The theory that Epstein didn't kill himself. Memes aside, he could have probably exposed a lot more rich people for their Shrek's crimes. They just bumped him off before he could do so. I saw once that the Titanic that sank wasn't actually the Titanic, but a very convoluted plan to cash out insurance from the damaged RMS Olympic, and that the Titanic retired in April 1935 under the name of RMS Olympic. Can't find the article one read it on, but it kinda makes sense. Had pictures of the hull and some signature features that made it very convincing. A North American primate aka Bigfoot. Not saying he's still around, just maybe he existed. Mattress firm is a drug cartel or a money laundering company, or maybe they're laundering money for the drug cartels. I don't know, but whatever it is, they're up to no good. O.J. Simpson is Khloe Kardashian's father. Rob Kardashian himself didn't want a DNA test done because he knew he wasn't the father. And if you look at Khloe, you can easily tell she has some similarities to O.J. That civilizations have risen and fallen far earlier than we currently are aware. And that ancient civilizations were way more capable than we give them credit for. The whole aliens in Area 51 thing was to cover up the fact it's actually a military test facility. The gov would rather have alien BS about that place than have other governments steal or sell their weapons and tech to avoid another war. Pretty smart in my opinion. Princess Diana car crash wasn't accidental. I truly believe P. Philip hired someone to get rid of her and have a feeling that when him, Elizabeth and Charles die some very secret conversations, emails etc will come out. Madeleine McCann was accidentally killed by her parents. I don't believe they intended to do it, but I do believe they covered it up, and once the press etc arrived they seen an opportunity to make money out of the situation. That the world is controlled by a select few ultra rich. Of course it is, because they are doing all the backdoor deals making each other even more money. There is a giant money laundering cycle driven by the sale of paintings. It's just a piece of canvas with some paint on it. I may understand some people would be willing to buy paintings from the Renaissance, but modern art is definitely a huge money laundering instrument. The Allies certainly knew about the Holocaust long before April-May 1945. They never just happened upon the camps as they were defeating Nazi Germany. This begs the question on why they never lifted a finger to stop the importations, destroy the rail lines to the camps, etc. But they never did despite them knowing what was going on.